Prison Dartmoor is a Category C men's prison, located in Princetown, high on Dartmoor in the English county of Devon. Its high granite walls dominate this area of the moor. The prison is owned by the Duchy of Cornwall and is operated by Her Majesty's Prison Service. In 1805, the United Kingdom was at war with Napoleonic France, a conflict during which thousands of prisoners were taken and confined in prison, hulks, or derelict ships. This was considered unsafe, partially due to the proximity of the Royal Naval Dockyard at Devonport, then called Plymouth Dock, and as living conditions were appalling in the extreme. A prisoner of war depot was planned in the remote isolation of Dartmoor. Construction started in 1806, taking 3 years to complete. In 1809, the first French prisoners arrived, and were joined by American PALs taken in the War of 1812. At one time, the prison population numbered almost 6,000. By July 1815, at least 270 Americans and 1,200 French prisoners had died. Both French and American wars were concluded in 1815, and repatriations began. The prison then lay empty until 1850, when it was largely rebuilt and commissioned as a convict jail. After originally being buried on the moor due to the establishment of the prison farm in A. All the prisoners' remains were exhumed and reinterred in 2 cemeteries behind the prison.
So did you get that? Did you get that? Did you get that? This prison was built because they couldn't leave the prisoners of the war on ships because of the living conditions, right? You brought slaves over from Africa on ships. Like, what the hell are you trying to pull, man? Like seriously. And then you get that. Americans. Merriam-Webster's 1828 definition of American, right? This was in the 1805. So we know who. Excuse me. Wow. Excuse me. I'm getting. We know who these dark Moors are that they put in this prison. Ooh, the War of 1812. Isn't that the French and Indian War? Oh, come on, man. They left that site over there, right, with red tape on it. This is so easy. That was unbelievable. And look out here, Americans. Like I said, we know who the Americans are that they send over there to die in prison. Wow. Excuse me, I gotta control myself.
Designed by Daniel Asher Alexander and constructed originally between 1806 and 1809 by local labor to hold prisoners of the Napoleonic Wars. It was also used to hold American prisoners from the War of 1812. Although the war ended with the Treaty of Ghent in December 1814, many American prisoners of war still remained in Dartmoor. From the spring of 1813 until March 1815, about 6,500 American sailors were imprisoned at Dartmoor. These were either naval prisoners or impressed American seamen discharged from British vessels. Whilst the British were in overall charge of the prison, the prisoners created their own governance and culture. They had courts which meted out punishments, a market, a theater, and a gambling room. About 1,000 of the prisoners were black. 4. After the prisoners heard of the Treaty of Ghent, signed on the 24th of December 1814, they expected immediate release. But the British government refused to let them go on parole or take any steps until the treaty was ratified by the United States Senate the 17th of February 1815. It took several weeks for the American agent to secure ships for their transportation home, and the men grew very impatient. On the 4th of April, a food contractor attempted to work off some damaged hardtack on them in place of soft bread and was forced to yield by their insurrection. The commandant, Captain T.G. Shortland, suspected them of a design to break out of the jail. This was the reverse of the truth in general, as they would lose their chance of going on the ships, but a few had made threats of the sort, and the commandant was very uneasy. 4. About 6 p.m. of the 6th of April, Shortland discovered a hole from one of the 5 prisons to the barrack yard near the gun racks. Some prisoners were outside the fence, noisily pelting each other with turf, and many more were near the breach and the gambling tables, though the signal for return to prisons had sounded. Shortland was convinced of a plot, and rang the alarm bell to collect the officers and have the guards ready. This precaution brought back a crowd just going to quarters. Just then a prisoner broke a gate chain with an iron bar and a number of the prisoners pressed through to the prison market square. After attempts at persuasion, Shortland ordered a charge which drove some of the prisoners in. Those near the gate, however, hooted at and taunted the soldiery, who fired a volley over their heads. The crowd yelled louder and threw stones, and the soldiers, probably without orders, fired a direct volley which killed and wounded a large number. Then they continued firing at the PR. Then they continued firing at the prisoners, many of whom were now struggling to get back inside the blocks. 4. Finally the captain, a lieutenant and the hospital surgeon, the other officers being at dinner, succeeded in stopping the shooting and caring for the wounded, about 60, 30 seriously, besides 7 killed outright. The affair was examined by a joint commission, Charles King for the United States and F.S. Larbent for Great Britain, which exonerated Shortland, justified the initial shooting and blamed the subsequent deaths on unknown culprits. The British government provided for the families of the killed, pensioned the disabled and promoted Shortland. 4. A memorial has been erected to the 271 POWs, mostly seamen, who are buried in the prison grounds.
So yeah, this was corrupt system. Who didn't see that coming, right? Corruption. Let's see here. I don't know if there's gonna be really much anything else in this. Other than that, there's names now where we can look up. There's what's mention of a treaty too that we need to look up, right? To find out. We could probably find out more about the Amer'icans, more about what they look like, from their own words. This was unbelievable that they left this here. they didn't rename the prison to something, boring or something you would recognize.
The Dartmoor Prison Museum, located in the old dairy buildings, focuses on the history of Dartmoor. Exhibits include the prison's role in housing prisoners of war from the Napoleonic Wars and the War of 1812, manacles and weapons, memorabilia, clothing and uniforms, famous prisoners, and the changed focus of the prison. It also sells 2015 garden ornaments and other items made in the prison concrete and carpentry shops by prisoners engaged in educational courses. There are also displays and information on less well-known aspects of the prison, such as the incarceration of conscientious objectors during World War I.
So this is probably a site that if any of our people are over there, wouldn't hurt if they made a video, right, touring the historical prison. I got a feeling that they probably won't leave anything up to show that the Indians look like us, but we know because of definitions, right, who the Indians are, who the Americans are, and so on and so forth. Look at that. So now we have Dartmouth College in Connecticut, which was a school built for the Indians, right? Now you have Dartmoor Prison in Europe. I mean, this is unbelievable. Let me see here. What? Well, I'm going to leave this in the description box. There you have it. Dartmoor Prison.